Hello, everyone, and welcome to the weekly Q&A podcast. I'm Mick Solomons, the developer of the Starting Strength app, and alongside me, Starting Strength coach Alex Koseri.
How's it going, everybody?
And calling in from 1999 is Rusty Holcomb.
Hey y'all.
From inside the Matrix.
Yeah. Do you want to tell people why you're got those funky shades on?
Oh, I had some laser surgery done on my eyes, so the light is pretty tearing me up a little bit. But I want to be called by my hacker name now, Sir Squats a Lot.
Nice. I thought it was just knee Nazi.
Nazi.
The Nazi spelled with a KN.
Rusty was so committed to coaching, he got his eyes mechanically improved.
So I can see that need slide just a little bit better.
Yeah. All right.
But if everybody sees me do this, it's because I'm trying to see what's going on my computer.
I thought we were just checking out your receding hairline there, Rusty.
That too.
Yeah.
Man, thanks, Dad.
It's hanging in there.
It's hanging in there. It is.
It's trying.
You and Rip are both hanging in there.
Yeah. Rip is hanging on by a thread.
Literally. So we got a few questions this week, which was good. The first one is from Chris. And I know this is going to sound like a setup question that I wrote myself, but it's not. This is actually a question I got on the email. So he says, I just purchased the app and I'm coming over from Strong Lifts where I was up to 170 pounds on the squat. How do I tailor the app to start there? So I think he's asking where you should be setting your work set weights coming in from Strong Lifts.
I mean, was that his single set of 5? I mean, there's a lot of information that's missing.
I think he's implying that's a 5x5.
Yeah, it's a 5x5.
That's a 5x5?
Yep.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. What do you think, Alex? Should he just run an LP?
Yeah, 175, man. If that's not kilos, if that's pounds,
Yeah.
then just go for 175. I mean, like the consequences of making one bad judgment call for your first workout are very minimal. You should be training, for many years on years. So it'll come out in the wash. Your LP may end either a week earlier or a week later, depending on the decision you make. But if you are not familiar with the starting strength form and you are coming over to the app, you're new to the low bar model that we use, and you've been coming from a 5x5 to a 3x5, do something manageable enough for you to get the low bar mechanics down. If you were already doing low bar and you're a pro at it, or as pro as you can be at 170 pounds, I'd probably just go 175 for your first 3x5, and you could probably run that for months.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I completely agree. You can get that squat over probably 300 before your LP runs out, determining on what your age is. I mean, I don't know what your body weight and age is, but you can run that LP for a while.
Yep. Good stuff. Send us a form check video, Chris, and we can check out the strong lift squat compared to the starting strength squat.
Yeah, their content is amazing. They have like a whole 3 paragraphs written on the squat.
Can anyone do the accent? Can anyone do his accent? Anyone good at it?
I cannot. I cannot, unfortunately.
Not even going to try.
Yeah.
I don't have it by memory.
He's Belgian, I think, isn't he? I think he's Belgian.
I feel like you're more in tune with the European peoples, Mick, having been to Finland and recognizing basements in Europe.
Recognizing bomb shelters in Europe, and where the KGB was headquartered. Okay, I got another question, and again, this one's going to sound like a setup, but this was a legitimate question I received on the email. It's from Sean Kisser. He says, "The app is awesome."
Question?
That was it. That was all he wanted to say. No, he said, "Thanks so much for all the work. Is there any plans for maybe a video feature within the app to make form checks easier and possible archives to see progression?" Yeah, Sean, we're actually rolling it out this week. So that's why it sounded like a setup. But it was just lucky. Yeah, we've got it coming out. I think we'll release the Android version is rolling out at the moment. So now there's a form check option in the app where you can actually just upload your video directly from inside the app, and it'll come straight to us, and we'll get it on the YouTube stream. So there you go.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's very cool.
Yeah, it's cool little feature. He had another question. He's said he's been looking to start using a belt when lifting, and he had a couple of questions about that. He's 6'2" and not sure if I should go with a 4-inch or a 3-inch. He says Bob's, I don't know what Bob's is, but he says has a 4-inch or 3-inch tapered belt for deadlifts. Best belts, Dominion, Bob's belts. Maybe a quick rant on what you think on belts.
I would, I am biased, but they're also great belts. I would go with the Dominion Strength 3-inch and see if that works for you. I would go with the 3-inch before I jump into a 4-inch.
We're talking about belts right now?
What was that?
Are we talking about belts right now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I thought that joke just went really badly for a second there. I was like, wow.
No, I would definitely go with the 3-inch before I'd go to a 4-inch. Sometimes the 4-inch is just too much, and people end up relying on it a little too much. I am a complete hypocrite because I do use a 4-inch, but I have used a 4-inch since I started lifting, and I just haven't been able to make the turnaround. But if I was restarting out, I would start out with a 3-inch.
Yeah, I think whichever one you use first, you're going to develop the preference of being like, that's the best kind. Because you're going to learn with it. I've found that 3-inch belts are a little bit more comfortable for shorter people. If they have a little bit of space between, the top of their pelvis and their ribs, or people who are a little bit more fluffy, they seem to be better with 3-inch. If you are relatively lean already and you can kind of get a 4-inch stapled to your core, then it's totally fine. I think if you can mummify yourself and you already know how to set your back in extension, more power to you. So
yeah.
All right. No worries. Thanks for the questions, Chris, Sean and Chris. Let's get on with the form checks. Okay. Abdul Aziz.
All right.
We've had Abdul on a few times now. He actually told me where he's from, where he lives. Did you want to take another guess at it?
Kentucky.
Definitely not Texas.
No, he's from Kuwait.
Kuwait. Okay.
Yeah.
He has access to the bodybuilding gyms, man. He should be blasting Tren, playing with dumbbells all day.
All right, I'm just now starting it.
Okay, I just finished rep 1.
Well, it's good to see he's taken.
So
sorry. Go ahead, Alex.
Oh yeah, I was going to say it's definitely good to see some weight on the bar for this one.
I was about to say that.
Okay. Yeah, exactly that. One thing I also like, it seems like the squat rack is shifting positions in his apartment. So I think he moves the whole setup out every time he lifts, which is very cool. Props to you, man. Respect for that. In terms of the form, these are to depth. These are kind of the high bar, low bar squat that everybody talks about. So you are attempting a low bar grip position, but doing high bar mechanics. So what we want is your nose and your forehead to aim down on the floor about 3 feet in front of you. A lot of people will be able to put their eyes down there, but keep their face up. So think about aiming your forehead or your eyebrows. Even if you just aim them right down to that cross beam on the bottom of your squat rack, that's a great place to start. And then when you're at the bottom, what we're trying to do is to have your butt shift up in the air before the rest of it does, right? So we don't want you to do a full good morning where your torso gets horizontal or parallel to the ground. We're looking for your hips to just lead the movement ever so slightly and for the chest to follow it. There's a few other things going on, but fix the eye gaze, the head position really. And then essentially once you can get hip drive, or once you can even start presenting it, even if it's incorrect or over dramatic, then you can kind of refine the rest, but work on that first.
Yep, I completely agree with everything. If you are having a hard time figuring out how to do the hip drive, what you need to think about when you're coming up is keeping your chest pointed down. Generally, if I cue that, keep your chest pointed down, people tend to feel that hip drive a little bit more coming up. But everything else Alex said was spot on.
Awesome. Thanks, Abdul. Keep those videos coming, mate. Cole Muth, our old mate Cole Muth, is back.
Poor guy having to live with the mask on.
Yeah, they are some tight pants, Cole. I love it. Mm-hmm. Does not leave much to the imagination.
As they should be, man.
I agree. He had a question while we're watching the video. He said he's worked up to 265 by 5 by 3, but he's beginning to feel a persistent pain in his lower back and decided to back off to 235, which is shown here in the video. The pain begins the day after I lift in a very specific spot on the right side of my spine around L4 to L5. It doesn't hurt during the workout. It happens after every time I squat, whether I deadlift that day or not. Do you see anything uneven about my form, or should I just train through it?
My opinion is I would train through it. I am no stranger to back pain. I have sciatica problems. And generally, when it does flare up, if I can get through my work sets, it tends to start feeling better. If it's a chronic thing, if it just doesn't go away, then you might want to reevaluate. I'm looking at these, and these actually look really, really good. If you ask me, you could get into your hip drive a little bit more. But I'm not seeing anything specifically that would cause any kind of back pain, any kind of shifting or anything of that nature. What do you think, Alex? Personally, I train through it if it's just back pain.
Just with the squats, I think they should be a little bit wider. You'll see some shift to the outside of the foot. That's not really going to help your back pain very much, but it is a thing that you should probably look into. This could just be a particularly narrow set to you. The stance is consistent as we try to make it, but it's never hyper consistent. It's never exactly the same. So this could just be a narrow set, but otherwise move your feet out about an inch on each side. In terms of the back pain, you could just be running at too high of an intensity too frequently for you. So if those squats when you were working up to 265 felt like a grinder, as did 260, as did 255, and as 270 will the next time you hit 270. If every single rep is like a bone-on-bone grinder, you may have to reevaluate your programming. Where the LP ends is individual for everybody, and everybody has a different tolerance for intensity. So if you're the kind of person who's going to get like just whole body aches and pains from hitting high intensity lifts, you're not going to get any sort of like Boy Scout badge for continuing to hit high intensity lifts all the time. So it's better to figure out a way to train very productively for the longest period of time, which should be your entire life. So the reset that you're doing, it's probably a good way to kind of resensitize yourself to everything. Try and get rid of that pain a little bit. But it's very possible that you should move on to intermediate programming where it's not 10 out of 10 lifts every single time you hit it. In terms of form, I think these are totally fine. Make sure it's not outside of the gym activity too. If you're doing like sports that could interfere with this, that could may well be it. I'll have people who are getting like kicked in the knees and kicked in the stomach and thrown all over the place being like, my back hurts when I squat. And I'm like, it's not the squatting.
That's a different coaching style you've got there, Alex.
It's all of the other activity you're doing. So if you're playing like some recreational football and getting blasted all over the place, examine that. But if you're just lifting, it's probably your programming because the form looks great. So.
Yeah, I think the form looks great too. A little more hip drive because your chest is kind of going exactly with your hips. There should be a little bit more of a kick. But I would also look at your press because a lot of I have a few clients who they started developing a little bit of backache, and it wasn't from the squat. It was actually from the press. It was from their spine moving whenever they're throwing their hips, especially their low back. So have we
looked at Cole's press before?
I don't remember honestly.
Yeah, I think we looked at it last week.
We did. Okay. Okay. Well, I didn't. I wasn't here for last week. But resend in another press or maybe a deadlift. Let's see if there's something else going on. But these squats, I don't think are contributing to the back pain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then make sure you're eating food. So if you're like trying to actively run at a deficit and also hitting high intensity training, your tolerance for that intensity is going to go down. You just need to make sure the rest of that environment is good. So make sure you're sleeping, make sure you're eating, making sure that you're not as stressed as possible outside of the gym. So.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, Cole. David Mark, squat. I think we had David on fairly early. I'm pretty sure this is the guy that had a rack made out of wooden chairs on top of two coffee tables.
Nice.
Yeah, it looks like he's got himself set up now.
Got it set up good.
Yeah, he had some questions about this as well, and I'll read them. He's 64, 5'9", 146 pounds. He said he's gotten up to a very ragged 165 by 5x3, but then got derailed by adductor tendonitis, probably from dropping hard into the bottom of the squat. I'm trying to be much more careful as I work back to heavier weight.
Yeah, these squats are good, are looking better. One thing, and it's hard to tell from this angle because of the plates, but it looks like you're shoving, you're hyperextending your back a little bit, where your chest is up, but your butt is sticking out. Stand up straighter and flatter. That'll save your back a little bit. I really, I don't think you're doing enough hip drive too. You're kind of driving your chest up with every single rep. Get your hip So whenever you're standing tall, take a big breath, squeeze, make sure your back is flat. You don't want to tilt your hips back. And then bend over, stick your butt back because your knees are jumping forward a little bit. And then in the very bottom, drive your hips straight up. But yeah, you are overextending your low back, and that will catch up with you really, really fast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with the last part. That seems to be one of the things where it's not as injurious as some of the other things. You know, like I'll notice people like Rusty was talking about last time on the press, if they just like slam the hips forward with basically no brace at all, that seems to be more aggravating from hip pain. I think it's kind of a function of just dynamic forces on it, but anything that's kind of slow and controlled seems to be like, it's not going to kill you. You know, I think it is incredibly inefficient though. You're going to hit like a very hard wall. Because what's going to happen is, you know, you're going to spend too much time letting your spine basically extend and round back, and then your descent for the squat to keep the pacing correct is going to end up being like 4 seconds. That would help with the dive bombing, but not in the right way. Definitely dive bombing is one of the key things that I see to people kind of getting groin tweaks or strains in their inner thigh, because essentially that's the platform that is just catching everything. I would widen your stance up a little bit. You seem to have quite long legs, and then past that, what you want to think about is clamping your abs down. Okay, so like if you pick your chest up really high and shove your finger under your bottom ribs, and then start your brace, and what you'll notice is that your ribs pull down to your stomach. Your ribs pull down to your pelvis. That's what you're trying to do. You're trying to clamp your stomach down and together instead of basically extending everything backwards. So setting your back does not mean extending it as much as possible. We're trying to get it to be neutral and stay there. Outside of that, I think it's very possible the bar position may be a little bit too high. That I'm not sure. That's spidey sense speculation. But I would widen the stance up, get your brace going better, and then lean over more confidently. And outside of that, definitely eat your groceries, man.
Yeah.
Eat your
definitely.
Groceries.
You need to gain some weight. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, pick a favorite year, maybe like, I don't know, pick 2024, and then plan for a bodybuilding show. Start eating food. Now's the time. Go from 149 to, 230, 240 at 5'9"? That should be fine.
Yep. And you'll be a man in Rip's eyes if you get to that way.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Thanks a lot, David. Appreciate the video, mate. Next up we have, Dr. Zach.
The chiro.
The chiropractor. He still hasn't ripped out the Crocs. It's disappointing.
You want me to take this one? Or you want to lead, Alex?
I'm not even through up one yet. I'm still in the setup. So.
Yep.
Okay, cool. I'll go and take it. So everything is looking pretty good until you decide to start pulling. Then your hips won't move, won't stop moving. It's like your hips are kind of feeling on where they need to go, especially that first rep. You're kind of doing this. And then whenever you decide to pull, your hip is shooting up, and then the bar starts moving. So you got to get tight to where everything is locked in and solid in the bottom. You pull on that bar, squeeze your chest up, try and point your chest to the wall with high hips. Don't let your hips drop. And then you can push on the floor harder, and then the bar should start sliding up your legs. You got the right idea for the setup. You're not setting your low back enough because you're kind of playing around with your hip position. So whenever your shins touch that bar, your hips don't move. And then you shove your belly down and squeeze your chest up. Make that bar heavy in your fingers, then drive your feet straight down. That'll be a much smoother pull.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. It's the hips are causing most of the inefficiencies here. I'll tend to see this a lot with people who are either looking at themselves in the mirror or aren't really fixing their head position to something. In the squat, you have a little bit more freedom with your head position, as it won't screw too much up because there is a thing attached to your back, right? So long as you conceptualize hip drive, you should be fine. On the deadlift, if you're at the bottom and you start wiggling your head around, everything is going to move. It takes like an amount of active attention to get tight to the bar. Then you can move your head up and down and get it set. Pick a spot. I think you're actually looking straight ahead at the wall, or I'm going to suspect a mirror here. But pick a spot probably about like 8 to 10 feet in front of you. That's a little bit shorter than the recommended distance, but I think that would be helpful here. 8 to 10 feet in front of you on the ground, aim your forehead or aim your hairline at it, and you'll have a better chance of keeping your hips up. when you're getting tight at the bottom, I like to think about pushing my hips and my shoulders to the ceiling at the same time. So I'm trying to use my quads to open my knees to push the entire system up as I get tight to the bar. And then just pretend you don't have a neck. Pretend it's not even an option. Glue your eyes into one spot, and I think that should be fine.
What's the opposite of pretty princess neck?
Ooh, I always say double chin for that.
Nice.
Give yourself a double chin.
That actually is the opposit, complete opposite.
Exactly, yeah. People know how to do it, especially the starting strength crowd. They can produce it on command. Just bam, pop it out.
My profile picture on my Instagram is a zoom in of my deadlift face, and it's not attractive.
Oh yeah, the deadlift face is truly the best.
Yeah. All right, thanks, Dr. Zach. I think we've got another video from Dr. Zach. Oh, we do. Dr. Zach 2. Oh, it's his press video.
The press, capital letters.
I think this confirms your suspicion that he's looking into a mirror.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think we actually had his press on last week.
We did,
right?
Yeah, we did.
We did. Okay, yeah. Yeah, the wrist position seems almost entirely fixed. Good job, Dr. Zach.
On you, Zach.
These are still floating out a little bit far in front of you. I think you're a little bit over eager for a layback. You're starting the layback intentionally rather than letting it happen on its own. So ideally, the hips are shooting forward, the chest is shooting forward while the hips shoot back, and you're using that energy to propel the bar upwards. In this, your hips are shooting forward, you're getting your chest into it a little bit, and then you are almost intentionally loosening everything up to get your head backwards again. If you're practicing for some sort of hyper-specific layback purposes, that's cool, I guess. But in terms of like where you're at with the press right now with this weight, you don't need to do that. Once your hips are at the front, think about throwing your chest forward into the wall as hard as humanly possible. Get it back into the front. And then as you're pressing backwards, you'll notice that they kind of meet, basically. So you're trying to press the bar backwards, you're trying to shoot your chest forwards, and the bar path will normally line up right over the middle of the foot. Right now, I think the core is just too loose, and you're just kind of sitting backwards, so you'll never be able to get it over the middle or over your shoulder. If you got the bar over your shoulder with ease, you would just fall backwards immediately. So.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that bar path is shooting forward. One thing that Nick D talks about is when you're holding that bar, if you point your finger, that's the direction that bar should go. So you should, as soon as you press, you should already start thinking about getting it back behind your head. As far as the layback, I'm not entirely convinced he's just relaxing to get that. Some people have a natural layback. I've seen it. Chase Lindley is a prime example of somebody who has a natural double layback, and of course his is very, very pronounced. You want to keep that core as tight as possible, but I've seen some people that naturally they just do a double layback. So I'm thinking,
I'll have to. It'd be nice to pull it up, but last week's press, I don't think the layback was this severe. It was the wrists that were all on. So I think the layback has changed now that he's fixed the wrists.
I see. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, if that was something that you just did from the beginning, I would say that was just the natural double layback. But if they saw something on the previous video, then you might be trying to force a layback. And if that's the case, that'll start wearing on your low back.
Yeah, we all want to be chased, but it's hard.
Did you see his 700-pound deadlift during the week?
Yeah, he's been
good.
chasing that thing since I've been working at the athletic club. He's been chasing
at least
that for
3
a while.
months of work, I think. He's just in his LP, I think, right?
Yeah.
He's in the last month of his LP.
He's 14.
The key is he's just drinking a gallon of milk a day.
That's it. Yeah.
Basically anabolic steroids.
Thanks, Dr. Zach. Edwin S. we have next.
Very cool setup here.
I know. I really do admire those plates. Are they? Is it Captain America?
Cool.
Yeah,
right.
Captain America plates. That's cool.
I hope this gym isn't in America and the guy who owns it is just a fan. He's like, what a good country.
I'll go ahead and start this one. First off, I don't know if you're doing it just for video purposes, but never walk a bar out like this and then rack it back like this. I mean, there's plenty in the book about how this can't be done safely. If you miss a hook, then the bar's going to go. So always face the hooks whenever you're walking the bar in and out. That's just a safety deal. Your stance is super narrow. Get your stance a lot wider. That will help with your balance. And it seems like the very first rep, you threw your hips, you got your head out of the way. Great. You need to be a little more aggressive with it, get a little more of a bounce. And you don't need to hold the bar up there for, 5 seconds. You can, as soon as you lock it out and get that big shrug in, bring it straight back down, get your breath in the bottom if you're going to be throwing your hips like that. So bring it straight down, get a big breath, squeeze your abs, hips, dip, and drive the bar. But I would definitely fix those feet. You're way too narrow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it must be hell in this gym to figure out how much weight is on the bar, because all of the plates seem to be exactly the same.
That could be 25 kilos, or it could be 75.
Exactly, yes.
Oh, no, it could be 110.
Yeah, he's pressing 500 pounds. Yeah. We have no idea.
It's impressive is what that is.
Yeah, so if you're going to press like this, just move the safety bar. Just press off the safety bars. You don't actually have to walk it out. You can have the safety bars at like collarbone height, get under it, stand up, and not have to take a single step. It's like the mono lift of pressing. If you're trying to do some video magic to get that done, just press off the safety bars. Or if you're particularly lazy, you can also do that. But yeah, so get the stance down. So think about taking your squat stance. And the next thing is the rhythm to the press. I think you're just pressing early. So your hips are shooting forward, and then you're immediately pressing. You basically have moved the bar down and haven't really gotten much of a bounce out of it. So it has to go hips and chest. So it doesn't go hips chest, because then it's a little bit too early, and then you still press just right off the bottom. You have to give it that little bit of time to cook for the chest to come back up and rebound, and you use that rebounding energy to throw the bar up. Right now you're just a little bit over eager with the pressing, and it's happening at the very bottom, so you're moving the bar an extra 2 inches. You don't have to move it. And the next thing, like Rusty said, change your bracing strategy. If you're doing the hip throw at the bottom, breathe at the bottom. There's no point in breathing at the top, holding it for another 2 seconds, coming down, holding it for 2 seconds, then starting your rep. But other than that, this was a great 300-pound press.
All right.
I do have one thing to say about the about moving the safety bars up. If I were to do that at the gym and Rip saw that, he'd be like, "Are you not strong enough to walk the fucking bar out of the hooks?" So take that for a grain of salt.
Yeah, if you reach to a certain level of laziness, that's the move, man. Yeah. That's the fucking move.
Got another video from Edwin.
God damn, he's squatting a lot of weight.
Mm-hmm.
It does look like a lot.
This is gonna be interesting. I'm only in the walkout right now.
Yeah.
Huh.
I'll let you start this one, Alex.
What an interesting squat.
Yeah.
It's cool, man. You're at depth. You're standing back up. Fuck it. No, but in reality, I think the biggest change is going to need to be at the grip. Right now, you're trying to pull your entire arm up over the bar. You're kind of arching the entire thing up. That's not what we want. Pretending if you didn't have arms, you would be able to pick the bar up on your massive rear delts. So you're going to squeeze your shoulder blades back and together to create a shelf where the bar is going to sit on. Your arms are just clasping that bar onto that shelf. They're locking it in. You don't want to be supporting that weight wholly by cranking your arms up. A lot of times this will produce some sort of like shoulder tendinopathy, just as a function of a tremendous amount of load being carried by the shoulder. Your legs are stronger than your shoulders. That's going to be the throttling point here. The bar speed on this was good enough that you can probably add a decent bit of weight to this, granted you get the rack position down and correct. So what you should think about doing is pulling your elbows down towards your ribs and then squeezing your chest up through your shoulders. So you're aiming for thoracic extension. Starting Strength is a really good article on this. Identifying thoracic extension in the squat. Start there. Watch some videos about like Rip fixes your press grip. You'll be able to pick up a lot of valuable things from there. But essentially the short version is elbows down, chest up. And then the next thing is that you need to widen your stance up by about, I would say, 4 inches total. You can probably keep the same toe angle, and then you're going to have to shove your knees out to the side with your new stance. So
Yep.
I'm unsure. It seems like most of the plates in this rack. So if it's like a 300-pound set, do you think that's how heavy most things are?
I reckon there's 220s and 210s, so it's probably...
I think it's 220s, 210s.
Yeah, I reckon it's 120, 265 or something like that. Still,
okay, interesting.
Be plenty strong, Edwin, that's for sure.
Yeah. I'd be very excited with proper like in-person coaching to add 100 pounds to your squat in a day, because the mechanics are a little bit wonky right now. But
with the hand movement, you're also going to want to bring your hands in tighter. When you're cranking your elbows up, your hands are going to want to slip out more than they need to. So bring those in too, and take it from me, because I had a very bad habit, and you can probably go on my Instagram and see some of these heavy lifts where when the weight gets real heavy in the very bottom of the squat, for whatever reason, I do that. I will start cranking my elbows and my wrists like this, and I start pulling down on that bar as hard as I can for whatever reason, and it has given me horrible bicep and elbow tendonitis. So take Alex's advice, fix your grip, because you will suffer for it later if you don't.
Yep. I'm going to take a guess that Edwin's in Singapore, and if that's the case...
Yeah.
Go see Sean Pang at High JR Strength and Conditioning. He's a starting strength coach in Singapore, and he'll be able to give you some in-person coaching, which is probably about the best you can get.
Yeah, and he sent us some really good videos too.
Yeah, he has. Yeah.
He sent us a real good video about the press, about the hips and the press. Should go to the Starting Strength YouTube and watch it. It's a really good video.
Yep. All right, thanks for the videos, Edwin. We have Eric Carpenter. Oh, yes. Our old mate Louis C.K.'s back.
I just started listening to Louis C.K.'s new podcast, Long Distance Relationships. It's pretty good. It's the only podcast I've ever paid for, but $5 to get all the episodes. It was great.
Nice.
I'm glad he's bouncing back after that thing.
Yeah, the thing.
Yeah, so he's overhead pressing consistently, and he's releasing a podcast. That's what Louis been up to.
Yeah, we should get him on as a guest.
Oh, that'd be great.
Guest coach Louis C.K.
All right, so Eric, you're not using your hips hardly at all. You're kind of dipping your knees a little bit. You're actually dropping your pelvis instead of pushing it forward. Especially on that first rep, it's real noticeable. Your knees punch, your hips don't. So you need to think about squeezing your quads, shoving your knees forward, and getting that bounce. Keep your elbows in front of the bar too. Your elbows are drifting behind the bar. If you do all that, you're going to get a pretty good bounce out of it. If you throw your hips, and it'll be a lot easier to drive that weight. I mean, that's actually a pretty good press for being as strict as you're doing. But you need to not let your knees bend. Okay. Once you develop that habit, it becomes a very hard habit to kick. So widen your stance just a tad bit, get your knees forward, or punch your hips forward and keep your elbows forward. Do that, and you might be able to add a little more weight on that bar when you get that dip down.
Yeah, I completely agree. The big issue here is the knees. The rest of the mechanics look totally fine. I would maybe narrow the grip a little bit actually on these to kind of get your forearm stacked a little bit closer to your shoulder. That's a comfort thing for some people. Their elbows start getting chewed up if it's too narrow. I'm like that myself. But yeah, you got to think about reaching your crotch forward rather than bouncing at your knees. We know you can produce a bounce in some athletic function. You're doing it now, just the wrong one. Just do the other one, and you'll be totally fine. It's going to have a similar sensation to it. So whenever you're self-coaching, it may be hard for you to differentiate what you're doing. So keep taking videos of what you're doing and then watching it, and then try to kind of tease out which rep felt like what, and then see if you can actually identify that sensation of your hips going forward rather than your knees creating the bounce. But I think these are definitely a pretty good start.
All right. Thanks very much, Eric. Are we going to get cancelled because we said Louis C.K.'s name a couple of times? Sort of a bit worried about that.
All the feminists have stopped watching us.
Yeah. All right, Eric, who's up next? Jordan Fraughton.
The man.
Yeah, the myth.
Yeah, Jordan's a pretty strong guy.
He said to say, this week marks his 1 year anniversary since starting NLP after 3 years of no exercise.
Oh, wow. Well,
he said,
hot damn, man.
Yeah, this is that's progress right there.
That's a decent NLP.
Yes, it is. That's it. That is a big, strong boy.
And he said to say, thanks a lot. The videos have really been helping him out.
Absolutely, man. Of course, we love to see freaks and mutants of all kinds. Exceptionally strong, fast people.
Jordan. Big thing that I'm seeing on these is knees and chest. Both of those things. Your knees are caving in pretty hard. Did we talk about him with his knees before? I remember
So he was doing the high bar, low bar before, and these are much more low bar than the last time. So that's a definite improvement.
So you need to start thinking about, as soon as the squat begins, your knees going out. Push them out harder than you want to, and hold them out there to your toes. They're also jumping a little bit far forward, and as a result, when you're on your way up, you're driving your chest straight up. You're basically trying to do the high bar with a low bar on your back. So keep your chest down on the way up. Think about driving your hips straight up, and knees stay out. Don't let them go too far forward. Other than that, these you're definitely strong, man.
Mm-hmm. I'm seeing the beginning workings of hip drive out of the bottom, so that's good. I can tell you're trying to do the hip drive. Think about aiming the SBD logo right in between your feet for longer, okay? So when you're coming out, once you get past the sticking point, your head's shooting up and your chest is shooting up. Stay in your hips for a little bit longer. Your instincts of self-preservation will get your chest up when it needs to come up, but just keep thinking about driving the hips up, and you'll notice the bar speed will improve. That sticking point generally moves up higher in space than where it would be before if you were leading with your chest. I would increase the toe angle a little bit in an effort to get your knees out a little bit more. It'll make it feel just a little bit more natural, I would say. So I would point the toes out, maybe another inch on each side. Think about tracking the knees out with the toes, and then keep aiming your SBD logo down at the ground. But other than that, the grip looks really solid. This did not look heavy on your back at all. So yeah, keep driving it up.
Man. Yeah, the knees, it's gonna be a hard thing to conquer, especially because they're jumping in so hard. People that make the habit, or their bodies just want their knees to go in. It's always a battle to keep the knees out. So it's not going to be easy, but just keep working at it, and everything will work itself out.
Cool. Thanks, Jordan. That's an awesome lift, man.
Yep.
I thought we had another video from Jordan. Do we have a Jordan?
I think we got a bench.
Here's a bench.
Yeah, we do. Man, he has got some great leverages for lifting, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is called the meatball phenotype, by the way. Is what this is called.
I'm sure he's going to be thrilled with that.
A giant torso, everything is made of muscle, short limbs. Yes. If you've ever wrestled or grappled, these people are a nightmare. Is what these are.
Yeah. I mean, this bench looks solid. I think you're pausing a little too long in the bottom. I don't know if you're intending on to, that, especially on that second rep, you kind of pretty much stop the bar and then you decide to press it. Touch and go, man. Take that big breath. As soon as it touches your chest, it's time to turn it around and drive it up to your shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, these look good to me.
Yeah, this looks like competition bench practice. I remember the first bench that you sit in a while ago, Jordan, was like all paused for, I think, a set of 5. And I want to say that was 275 if I remember correctly. Yeah, so if you are just training for speed and power, just touch and go, man. There's nothing wrong with it. I think you're losing a little bit of gas out of the bottom by pausing. If you are going to pause, you need to actively drive your legs and chest into the bar to make up for that. So just make up your mind about which one you want to do. You know, the heave is cool. It feels athletic and nice, as does the touch and go, as does the strict. So it's a personal preference thing. It would be good to have a few tools in your programming toolkit for whenever you get third plate on there, to have like a pause bench day, have like a leg drive day, have a strict bench day, things like that. But I think these are technically very refined.
Alrighty. Thanks, Jordan. Very impressive, mate. 1 year of NLP, and that was a 295 bench as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It took me years to work up to a squat. Many, many years.
Melanie Sitnick is up next.
I think these look great already.
This is not starting strength radio.
No, I know. I just turned the volume on it just to hear if Rip was talking to her in the background.
This is definitely not starting strength radio.
She got the singlet on though.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, Alex? I think these look fantastic, honestly.
I think these are great. Alex Mitchell and I talked about this a little bit last time about kind of like the possible negatives of kind of that rollback with the shoulder. If it's heavy enough, it'll work itself out on its own. I don't really have any problems with that at all. But yeah, I think these are solid. Way to rep the starting strength brand. But other than that, just keep on keeping on. I still think those are shorter than average plates, though.
Yep.
On the bar.
Yeah.
I still think so. So maybe sim those up a little bit if you don't have standard height plates. That way that whenever you do get standard height plates, it won't be as foreign for you. But other than that, no, these look great.
I think you're right, because I was debating if her hips were a little too high, but that could be why they are too high. Or she's just reaching down a little bit further. Basically, you're doing a deficit.
Yep. And I think I finally got her name right after about her 6th submission. So, anything good came out of this week, it's that.
After a full quarter of learning your name. Yeah.
All right. Any other feedback from Melanie, or is that good to go?
No, I think they're good. I think they're good. I agree. She needs to shim those plates if they aren't standard size.
Mm-hmm. Yep. All right. Excellent. Thanks a lot, Melanie. Neil B. You had a couple of questions. He said he thinks there's a couple of inches too deep and too quick from the top, and he's trying to work on both issues. He says, after watching Rusty's knee Nazi episode, I try to set my knees early and hold them. Question, am I bent over enough? He's 41, 6'1", 235 pounds, up from 200 pounds, 3,300 calories a day, probably overindulging on McDonald's during the week.
Hey man, you got to build that mass.
Yeah.
Do those look like lifters to you guys, or are those like basketball shoes or the Metcons or something?
Right now, I can't tell.
Rusty's or laser vision.
Everything's a blur to Rusty at the moment.
Everything's kind of a blur.
Yeah, I don't think those are lifters to me. I would get some lifters. Some lifters. And a new belt. I believe that's a Velcro belt as well. Whenever you start and get a real belt, you'll be like, oh damn, this was a incredibly noticeable difference. But yeah, so in terms of depth, you are definitely going too low. You'll notice kind of the rate of closing with the knee and the hip and the torso all tracking at the same exact rate. Everything's golden. You hit depth, and then you go like another 3 inches south of that. And what you'll notice is that the torso starts to get more vertical as the knee closes. You don't really have a choice about what to do here. I would either use a box kind of as a precautionary measure. If you've touched the box, you've gone too low, or have someone with you, like whoever was filming that video, just call your depth for you for a little bit. Because you're staying tight to depth, but just deciding to go significantly deeper than that. The other option is, just put like 225, 185, something like that on the bar. Take a video, see if you hit depth, try and just hone in on that process, spend like an hour doing it, do some reps, see if it was depth, figure that out. But the rest of the mechanics on these should be fine, so long as you can figure out how to stop at depth rather than going so deep. So,
yeah. One thing I've noticed that I don't think Alex addressed is your knees. You're holding them back too much in the very beginning. You got to get your knees where they need to go early in the squat. So you're holding them back, holding them back. And then at the very bottom, they're punching all the way forward because you're getting too deep, like Alex said. So when you start the squat, your hips and knees go at the same time, and your knees go to around where your toes are at, and they stop. The rest is all hips from there. So squat higher, like Alex said. Get your knees where they need to go early, and stay bent over.
Mm-hmm. Can you explain to me something about squatting too deep? And I've heard Rip talk about it, that it actually takes the hamstrings out of the squat. Can you explain how that happens?
Yeah. When your knee angle closes, your hamstring shortens. So that's what's causing your hamstring to be taken out of the squat. Whenever your hips stay back and your knees angle stays open, it elongates that hamstring as long as your hips stay tilted back, and then you can use that to bounce out of the bottom.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the rebounding platform, kind of whenever we're talking about the bounce, it's not really generated at the ankle or generated at the knee through the quad. It's generated in the crotch and in the back of the leg. And that's the inner thigh, that medial compartment, and then the posterior compartment with all of your hamstrings. And your glutes are bouncing a little bit too, but just not as much because they're not actually that stretched. And then what you're aiming for is that peak contraction is going to happen at a relatively long length. If you consciously shorten that by either rounding the pelvis under, so if you basically let go of your lumbar spine, you'll make it shorter from the proximal end. If you let your knees close too much, you'll shorten it from the distal end. You will meet some people who are, mobile, for whatever that word is worth, who can generate a bounce deeper, like 2 inches south of what we would normally call depth. They are few and far between, trust me. For most people, that ideal or generally most easily findable bounce is right at depth. Granted, they are sufficiently leaned over enough. If you change the mechanics up, you make the torso longer, you move the bar like 3 inches up the back or something wonky like that, you get a higher heel on the shoe, that bounce point may be now 3 inches lower. But with the low bar mechanics, that bounce is going to be right at depth.
Got it. That was good. Good explanation, fellas. All right. Thanks very much, Neil. Appreciate it. Russell Hogg Press.
What a great name, by the way.
The Hog. We were talking about hogs just before this.
Yeah, man, I'm Russell Hogg.
I wonder if he's called the Rusty Hog. That would be great.
Rusty Hogg. That does not sound nice.
Do you think he might be
Hogg is classy enough to operate, to open a bank account? If you open up a bank account as Rusty Hogg, they will call the police.
Yeah. Especially if he turns up looking like this with his his black gear and no shoes.
All black,
Rusty
no
Hogg
shoes.
is it's something you order from a lady of the night, I think.
Yes.
Or a man of the night. Probably more like
A
a
man
man.
Shit.
Have you had
Rusty,
that requested a few times, Rusty? I feel like that's been requested a few
I'm probably
times.
going to now.
It's like you look like you got triggered then.
Yeah, as kindred spirits, Rusty, you have to take this one. As a fellow Russell.
Yeah. First things first, man. Get some lifters, get some shoes on. Don't lift barefoot. Don't fall into the fad. First thing. Second thing is that bar position. Is you're coming out and you're pretty much touching your chest. It's pretty hard to get a bounce whenever you're touching your chest. Looks like you're trying to do a more strict press. If that's the case, I would still hold that bar under your chin and do your strict from there. Right here, you're just adding a whole bunch more range of motion that's not necessary. And on top of that, to get it to touch your chest, you have to drop your elbows behind the bar or right underneath the bar. You want your elbows a little bit in front of the bar so you can drive it back behind you. As soon as you clear your face, you need to start thinking about getting that bar over your shoulders and shrugging immediately. And one thing that will help is keeping those elbows pointed forward as far as you can until you have to externally rotate your arm. Widen your stance too. Your stance is pretty narrow. But if you're going for just a strict press, I would fix those things, and you probably won't hit a sticking point on that last rep. You probably be able to add a little bit more weight to that bar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so as for the shoes, even if you're trying to go like the minimalist route for whatever reason, if you're lifting in like a Converse or any sort of like Van or anything like that, just get something that's not like a bouncy moon shoe, like a running shoe. You can get them at, like a big box store for incredibly cheap, like $10 to $15 a pair, and just lace them tight as hell. It will help pretty dramatically. We didn't evolve with shoes, but they are only helpful. I don't really think they're detrimental in many situations.
We didn't evolve with clothes either, so
Yeah, man. If you're going full Rusty Hog, just belt only.
Full Rusty Hog.
Hog out, no clothes. From this viewing angle, it would be theoretically "quote unquote" safe for the audience.
Yeah, well,
unless you're a very lucky man, we wouldn't see the trail end of it.
I don't know.
Well, coming back to get his camera, we would have seen just got everything an eyeball.
Oh yeah. He's walking back to the camera, and we just get smacked in the face with it.
Yeah.
So a lot of people think the bottom position of the press has to be comfortable, or it should feel like you're just kind of stacked there, like the bar can rest on passive structures. If you put the bar quite low, it's just going to hang off of your shoulder. Okay, you're essentially creating tension in your upper arm by the lower arm pushing down at the elbow. So it feels like comfortable. You're like, oh, I could probably hold fucking 225 here if you just let your shoulders sag enough. You kind of have to think about keeping the bar in a partially pressed position. Your hands are too externally rotated right now. That's why the wrists are bent back. So whenever you're taking your grip, I think Nick D has a good video on this recently. I forgot what it's called, but he runs through basically tilting the hands down, I say like create a triangle with your hands like this, and then move the hands out. But you need to turn your hands down, get the bar seated right on this outside corner of your palm, and then think about keeping it in a partially pressed position. So the bottom of the press is not comfortable. I like to say float it right above your collarbones. Okay, not in front of your collarbone, but right above it. That way, it's really close to your neck. It's normally right over midfoot, and the bar is going to be about 2.5. I would say 2.5 to 3 inches higher. But yeah, fix the bottom position of the press, fix your grip, get some shoes, and I think that should be it.
Yep. I don't understand this whole barefoot lifting thing. Did you guys understand why it's a thing?
I've heard people trying to soak nutrients up from the ground. I've heard all sorts of fun things. So I don't know. I don't understand it.
There's like a school.
Barefoot.
Yeah, there's a school of lifto mumbo jumbery where it's like you need to create the tripod with your foot. So you'll have your heel and then like the pinky side and the big toe side. And those are the 3 components of the tripod. And you need to like equally distribute force through all of them to be a good squatter. And a bunch of crazy memes like that.
Well, isn't there like a grounding thing? Is that what I'm thinking of? Soaking up nutrients from the ground, like grounding? That's a thing?
That's like next level mom science that Rusty's talking about.
Yeah, but you're not soaking any nutrients up on a gym floor. All he's soaking up is 10 years of bacteria and fungus.
Yes. Hey man, you got to build that immune system up. You got to fight COVID.
Yeah, man.
Well, I noticed that at powerlifting gyms. I mean, I was at a powerlifting gym here before COVID. And it's a number of people who just walked around barefoot, putting their disgusting feet up on benches, and they'd be on the floor doing rolling out their muscles, and then they'd put their feet up on benches, and it was just I don't know, man. It just grossed
come on,
me out.
man. It's, I think like you'll see a number of exceptionally strong people do it because they're just like in compression shorts and a belt and nothing else on, and they're like, yeah, dog, I'm squatting like 900 pounds. So people are like, this must be the way. But it's not. No. Wear some shoes. Shoes are very helpful.
Yeah, if you're squatting 900 pounds, then nobody can tell you what to do. But if you're not squatting 900 pounds, follow what other people have messed up, so you can do the right thing.
Yeah. Did you see? There's a video going around this week about some Russian powerlifter breaking both his knees. Did you guys see that?
Oh, yeah, I heard about this video, and I refused to watch.
Yeah, me too. I got sent to me, and I'm like,
really interested in watching those gym injuries, like people on leg presses and whatnot that get hurt. I have zero interest in watching it. No, that's just not for me, man.
Is it just the leg press? You don't want to watch people leg pressing, or have you?
Just watching people leg pressing.
Yeah. I used to really like kind of gym fail videos, and then I dislocated my first shoulder, and I didn't like watching gym fail videos after that. The first time I cranked somebody's shoulder out while like looking them right in the face, and I was like, I'm so sorry.
Well, it's a shame because we've now got 15 minutes of gym fail videos for you, Alex.
I was like, I now empathize with these people who have been hurting themselves in commercial gyms for much longer. But
I mean, honestly, whenever you're one of those people that put every single plate on the leg press, then you stack plates on top of that, and then you have some half-naked girl sitting on top of it to get famous for the gram, and then you dislocate both your knees and you don't have plantar flexion anymore. That's your own fault, but I don't want to see it.
Well, you'd watch it for the girl. I mean, that's what gets you in.
Put your thumb over the screen.
All right. I thought we had another one from Russell Hogg. Is there 2 from Russell Hogg? Yeah, we do. We've got his squat video as well.
Okay.
Sean Kisser now.
No, we got Russell Hogg too.
No, we got a squat.
Oh, we got Russell Hogg too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Rusty Hogg.
Rusty, is your full name Russell, or is it like Rustathan? Or what?
It is Russell. It is
Russell. Okay. Rustallion.
Ooh, that was very close. Oh, he's giving us a single.
Are those 45s or 35s on the bar? Those look thin to me. Use your seeing eyes, Nick.
Yeah, I reckon they're 45s.
Okay, we got a single at 225. Very cool.
Yeah, no, I reckon it's 45.
Mm-hmm. So here's a really good example of you seeing your feet. In coaching, people will kind of use the foot, or looking at the foot in the shoe is kind of a good diagnostic measure of where the lifter's balance is around midfoot. sometimes you'll be able to see small deviations. You'll see like kind of the crease of the foot or crease above the toe box moving up, kind of telling that someone's on their heel. I think coaching someone without shoes would be pretty easy because you can actually just see the entire foot come off the ground. So, during your descent, you'll be able to see your toes pop off the ground. You send the hips a little bit too far backwards. You'll see a lot of lateral movement as well. I think this is outside of the things that we said last video. This is a great argument as to why you should get squatting or lifting shoes. Other than that, I think the stances, I want to say about 2.5 inches too narrow. You'll be able to get a better bounce when everything is a little bit more stretched out. Other than that, the rest of these mechanics look totally serviceable. I think you also could have hit this for a set of 5. So.
Yeah. This bar was moving pretty good. Yeah, you're kind of holding your knees back in the beginning, and that's why I think your toes are coming up. You're holding your knees back too much and shifting your hips back, so all your weight's coming back, and then in the bottom, your knees are forward, and then you're more on your toes. So get your knees set early. Always set your knees early. Within the first one-fourth of the squat, first quarter of the squat, your knees need to be where they need to go. And then the rest is hips from there. But if your toes are coming up like this, that means your weight's too far back. So get your knees get your knees there early, and that should fix that. But yeah, get some lifters, man. There's no reason to be squatting without any arch support.
I reckon Rusty Hogg's one of your mob, Alex. A grappler or into jiu-jitsu or something, given the setup there.
You'll see that so much. Like people, a lot of martial arts guys are like, yeah, man, well, I don't wear shoes in my sport. And it's like, well, then just like don't wear shoes when you go to like Target or Walmart then,
Yeah.
Like next time you go to Home Depot, don't wear shoes then. What the hell's wrong with you?
I have a quick anecdote about people not wearing shoes. So there's a guy that goes to the gym. He one of the girls that goes to the gym, she knows him because from the country club. And she said that they used to get calls from him.
What world do you live in, Rusty? People are going to the country club.
She works at the country club.
I wouldn't be allowed in the country club, would I?
People on the green would call and be like, hey, you need to come get this guy. We can't tee off because he's just walking around the green. And he would walk around without shoes on to soak up the nutrients from the soil.
Amazing.
True story.
Can we get him on the show?
Amazing.
And if
That
you knew this
man's
guy,
name?
you would. What's that?
That man's name, Nick Delgadillo.
I'm not going to say it.
Nick Delgadillo is definitely not allowed at a country club.
With Schmick Schmelgashmio.
I like the man quite a bit, but that is not out of the realm of believability when it comes to him.
Nick Delgadillo is definitely not allowed at a country club in Texas.
It's Nick.
Got a question.
Kicks off in sandals.
Yeah, got a question from Alex V in the comments. Any idea how to manage hip pain during the squat? I feel like my hip is getting crushed at the bottom.
So go to google.com. It's a great resource.
Google it, Alex.
Look up the Active Hip 2.0, comma, space, mark, space, Ripito, enter, or return. Read that article. That will solve 99% of people's I have hip pain in the squat. That is normally for medial or like an interior compartment of the hip where you're feeling like some amount of impingement going on or like a squeezing or kind of compression feeling at the bottom. If it is the outside of the hip, that tends to kind of be a load management thing I found. Normally it's from the knees not being shoved out far enough. That article is excellent. But if you think you're checking all of your boxes and you're doing everything correctly, I would at that point guess it's your programming.
Yep. Rusty, any?
I think he nailed it. You read that article and it fixes a lot of things.
Okay.
Yeah, if you use like Ask Jeeves or Yahoo.com to get there, it's not going to work. Don't look this up via Bing, I don't think. Google only, and you should be fine.
All right. Last video, Sean Kisser. And Sean had a few comments about this. He said he's watched some videos from Paul Horn and Alan Thrall for some stretches. Do you have any other ways I can work on getting the bar in the right spot and straightening out my wrist some?
Interesting.
Those two videos, I think I know which videos you were talking about. I think those are very good resources. Some people just don't have the shoulder mobility right off the bat, and it takes a lot of time to work on it. I have I train a doctor. He's a surgeon, and he has the most poor shoulder flexibility I've seen, especially for working with him as long as I have. It's just been a battle. So it's just something you're going to have to work at. Follow those 2 videos, especially that Paul Horn video, and that should help you quite a bit.
I don't think this is a flexibility issue at all, actually.
Okay.
You are putting this on because you'll get like a glimmer of it in the unracking process, like before you're actually taking the load onto your shoulder. You'll be like, okay, that's like a rack position, that would be fine. And the second the load gets onto your back, you let your shoulders come forward, and you're just sitting it on a soft shelf. Don't be is like a joke to remember this. I always tell people, like, don't be flaccid under a squat. Your back needs to be actively contracted backwards. So think about, like, if you're doing like a face pull or a row or something, you're trying to pull your hands as far behind you as possible. Like we talked about earlier, you're trying to create like a robust, meaty shelf for the bar to sit on. You're locking it on with your hands. Right now, you're getting under the bar, you're relatively loose. Most of the weight is in your palms, and when you pick it up, it just gets softer and worse. So I think this would be like in-person coaching to get your chest up, get your shoulders in the correct position. But yeah, I don't think this is a flexibility thing. I think you can have the right rack position in like 5 minutes. But you need to actively think about pulling your shoulders behind you and pushing your chest out in front of you before the bar even gets onto your back. And I think that should solve most of it. And the next thing is that you may have to alter your expectations about what the rack position feels like. Like if you are having a proper rack, your shoulders are pulled back as far as humanly possible, and then you are getting tight to it, it's going to be uncomfortable. So you have to actively fight for that wrist position. I don't think this is actually a flexibility limited problem at all.
Just it looks like that bar is really over to one side as well.
Yeah. It's
it's
sloppy.
definitely off point. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got it.
But to address the other issues with the squat, you're getting way on your toes in the bottom, which tells me you're not stopping your knees, you're not sitting your butt back. So do what Alex says. Think about squeezing your chest out, making a big Superman chest, squeezing your back really tight. Whenever you start your descent, you need to think about reaching back with your hips more than you want to. Stop your knees. Don't let them punch forward in the bottom. Your heels are actually coming up off the ground a little bit because you're so toe heavy. So fix those two.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, and get that bar. That bar's really noticeably leaning to one side as well because it's not off center as well.
Yeah, you're off to the left. And I notice this with people when they use bars that don't have the middle knurling. When they get under it, they get off really bad. I've noticed this with my clients. That's why I tell them always grab a bar that's got middle knurling on it. So if you have another option with a bar with middle knurling, that might help you stay a little more centered whenever you get under the bar.
And then as a final note, wear a thicker cotton t-shirt. I believe that is like a polyester Under Armour one, which is not helping you keep a tight back.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've done a video over that. And, got a lot of hate on that video. People
Rusty
are like,
is
do you
shirtless,
really have to talk about this?
And then he tries on different shirts in the video. That's the whole thing.
It's on the Starting Strength at Night website.
SSAN. That'd be a good one.
Change your
like for real though. Yeah, I think Russell Hogg and then Sean Kisser are fake names, frankly. To be back to back, Russell Hogg and Sean Kisser, they're robbing banks in the Midwest together.
Those are very creative fake names. I like them.
Travis Reed left a comment. G'day, fellas. Love the new look, Rusty.
Oh, thanks, man. Yeah. I'm trying to unplug, man.
Yeah, he does cybersecurity for the country club.
Well, actually, that's our last video. So, thanks, guys. That was good. Ripped through it. 1 hour exactly. Good job.
Excellent.
Man,
excellent. We're getting real good at being on time.
Yeah.
Well, not last week.
Oh, yeah.
Or the week before that. Well, we missed it by about 3 days.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Besides that, though, we've been.
I mean, outside of that, what is time, anyways? Really?
It's a human construct.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to find Rusty on the internet, where would you do that at?
What is my Instagram?
At Rusty Hogg.
Rusty
it's
Hogg.
R_Hogg. Yeah.
I think it's Rust_Strength_training. I think that's what it is. I should probably change that.
And where can people find you, Alex?
You can find me in the Starting Strength directory. I'll be lurking on the Starting Strength subreddit or at a website link, which we'll throw in the description. I do online coaching, and I like to argue about programming. So if either of those things interest you, shoot me some line of communication.
Excellent. Yep. All right. Well, thanks a lot, guys. Thanks for your time, and we'll catch you next week.
Absolutely.
All right,
See you,
guys.
boys.
Thanks.
Take your time. Bye.
Bye.